It was supposed to be just another night of Donald Trump bragging about his perfect family. But the second Jasmine Crockett locked her deadly stare on him, the entire studio felt the shift. She blew the lid off Trump's biggest lie, that Ivanka Trump, not Melania, was the real mother of Barron, and the whole family had been lying to the American people for years. What started as a proud father's speech exploded into absolute chaos on live television, leaving Trump red-faced and speechless as his empire of lies came crashing down in front of millions. This was Straight Talk Live, one of the most watched primetime political programs in America, broadcast from a packed studio in Manhattan. Donald Trump strode out first, chest puffed out, flashing that familiar victory grin like he already owned the night. The crowd erupted in applause. He raised one hand, waving it slowly, soaking it all in. Right behind him, Ivanka walked gracefully, her posture perfect, her blonde hair catching the light just right. She smiled at the audience, but if you looked close, her eyes kept darting away, never quite landing on her father for more than a second. She sat down beside him, crossing her legs neatly and folding her hands in her lap. The host stepped forward with a big, welcoming smile, clearly excited to have such big names on his stage. "Mr. Trump, tonight millions of Americans are watching. You've been through so many battles over the years. What keeps you going? What's your real source of strength?" Trump leaned into the microphone, his voice booming with that signature confidence. "It's simple. Family. My family is the greatest strength I have. Ivanka, Barron, all of them. They're loyal, they're smart, they're the best. Nobody has a family like mine. They stand by me no matter what." He thumped the desk lightly with his fist and nodded, like he was stating an obvious fact. The audience clapped again, louder this time. Trump's smile widened. He looked every bit the proud father soaking up the love. Ivanka kept smiling too, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her chair until her knuckles turned a little white. She gave a small nod toward the crowd, playing the part of the supportive daughter, but something in her stillness felt off, like she was holding her breath. Across the stage, Jasmine Crockett sat completely still. She didn't clap, she didn't smile. Her sharp eyes stayed locked on Trump the whole time, watching every move he made. Trump kept going, his voice rising with energy. When people look at a leader, they look at his family. That's how they know who he really is. And my family, we're rock solid, always have been. He waved his hand like he was closing the case for good. The crowd ate it up, clapping and cheering again. Trump was still riding high, his voice booming across the studio as he leaned back in his chair. "America needs strong families, and let me tell you, nobody has a stronger family than mine. We stick together through everything." "Mr. Trump," Jasmine Crockett cut in, her voice calm but sharp enough to slice right through his sentence. The words landed like a slap. The audience went dead quiet. She didn't yell. She didn't even raise her tone. She just looked him straight in the eyes and said, "You talk a lot about loyalty and truth, but are you brave enough to tell the American people who Barron's real mother is?" The studio froze. Trump blinked hard, his face turning red in seconds. For a split second, he looked like someone had punched him in the gut. Then he slammed his hand down on the desk so hard the microphone jumped. "That is a disgusting lie," he shouted, his voice cracking with anger. "How dare you? That's total garbage. Shameful." Ivanka's head snapped toward Jasmine. Her usual calm cracked wide open. For the first time that night she spoke, her voice shaky and tight. "This is private family business. You have no right to drag my brother into this. None." Jasmine didn't flinch. She sat perfectly still, her hands resting on the table, eyes locked on Trump. "I'm not dragging anyone," she said coolly. "I'm asking a simple question, and I wouldn't ask it if I didn't have proof." The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that makes your skin crawl. No one clapped, no one cheered. The audience just sat there, mouths slightly open, leaning forward in their seats. A few people whispered, but most held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The bright studio lights suddenly felt too bright, too hot. Trump tried to laugh it off, forcing a big, loud chuckle that sounded completely fake. "She's crazy. Totally crazy. Nobody believes this nonsense." But his laugh died fast. His voice wavered at the end, and everyone could hear it. The confidence he walked in with was already cracking. Ivanka's fingers dug deeper into the arms of her chair. Her face had gone pale under the makeup. She kept glancing at her father, then back at Jasmine, like she was scared of what might come out next. Jasmine stayed ice calm. She leaned forward just a little more, her voice steady and clear. "The truth isn't always easy to hear, Mr. Trump, but the public deserves it, especially when a leader builds his whole image on family values." The studio felt smaller now. The applause from earlier was long gone. All that was left was this thick, uncomfortable tension hanging in the air. Trump's face grew even redder. He jabbed a finger toward Jasmine, breathing hard. But he didn't have a quick comeback ready. Jasmine didn't wait for the tension to settle. She reached under the table and pulled out a thick manila envelope. The room got even quieter as she held it up toward the cameras. "These aren't rumors," she said, her voice steady and clear. "This is the hospital record from 2016. It shows Ivanka Trump was the one who was pregnant and gave birth to Barron, not Melania. The dates, the medical notes, everything is right here." She opened the folder and read a short section out loud. "Patient, Ivanka Trump. Procedure, cesarean section, private wing, New York Presbyterian. Date of birth, March 20th, 2016. Attending physician confirmed full-term delivery." Jasmine looked straight at the camera. "That timeline doesn't match the story the public was told. Not even close." Trump shot up from his chair so fast it scraped loudly against the floor. His face was bright red, veins popping on his forehead. He pointed a thick finger right at Jasmine. "This is all fake. Totally fabricated. Shut her mic off right now. This is a witch hunt." Ivanka had gone completely pale. She leaned forward, her voice trembling as she tried to speak. "My father has never lied about our family. This is disgusting. You're making things up to hurt us." But her words started to break when Jasmine turned and looked her directly in the eyes. Ivanka's mouth opened, but nothing else came out. She just sat there, frozen, her hands shaking in her lap. Jasmine stayed calm, almost too calm. She set the hospital papers down and pulled out another sheet from the same envelope. "And here's the DNA report. It was done quietly years ago. It shows a clear maternal match between Ivanka Trump and Barron Trump. The probability is over 99.9%. These documents are verified, notarized, and cross-checked." The audience exploded into shocked murmurs. Some people gasped loudly. A few started clapping lightly, not because they were happy, but because they couldn't believe what they were hearing. The energy in the studio flipped in an instant. Whispers turned into louder talking. Phones started coming out in the crowd. Trump slammed his fist on the desk a second time. The microphone actually rattled from the force. "Lies! All of it! You can fake anything these days. This is garbage." His voice boomed through the studio, but it sounded more desperate than powerful now. He was breathing hard, eyes wild as he looked around like he expected the audience to back him up. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She just looked at him and said evenly, "The louder you yell, Mr. Trump, the more I know you're scared of the truth coming out." That line hit hard. The audience reacted with another wave of gasps and low murmurs. A couple of people in the front row actually nodded. Ivanka looked like she might be sick. Her eyes were wide, darting between her father and Jasmine, but she couldn't find any words to fight back. Trump was still trying to regain control, his face flushed and his breathing heavy. He pointed at Jasmine again, ready to fire back, but she didn't give him the chance. She calmly reached back into the thick manila folder and pulled out a small black digital recorder. She held it up toward the cameras, making sure every lens caught it clearly. "This isn't just paper," she said, her voice steady and cold. "This is real audio from 2015. Listen carefully." She pressed play. The studio went dead silent as Ivanka's younger voice came through the speakers, clear and tense. "Doctor, I can't let the public know I'm pregnant right now. We need to keep this completely quiet. No records under my name if possible. My father's campaign can't handle any distractions. This has to stay between us." The words hung in the air like smoke. For a second, nobody moved. Then Trump exploded. He lunged forward across the desk, trying to snatch the recorder out of Jasmine's hand. "Turn that off right now," he roared. "Shut it down. This is illegal. You can't play that." At the exact same moment, Ivanka jumped out of her chair. Her face was twisted with panic. Turn it off immediately," she screamed, her voice high and breaking. "That's private. You have no right." Jasmine simply clicked the recorder off and set it down on the table. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even stand up. The contrast between her calm and their panic made the moment even more intense. The audience erupted. Gasps and loud whispers filled the studio. Some people were shaking their heads in disbelief, while others leaned forward, eyes wide, phones already out recording the chaos. Ivanka was breathing hard, her perfect posture gone. She pointed a trembling finger straight at Jasmine. "You're destroying my family. You're tearing us apart on live television. How can you sleep at night doing something like this?" Jasmine looked her dead in the eyes and answered without hesitation. "No, Ivanka, I'm not the one destroying your family. Your father used Barron as a political shield. He hid the truth so he could keep pushing this perfect family image during the campaign. That's what's cruel. That's what's destroying trust." Ivanka's eyes filled with tears instantly. Her lower lip quivered. She tried to hold it together, but her voice cracked completely. "My father. He was only trying to protect my son. That's all he wanted. He wanted to keep him safe from the media, from the attacks, from everything. You don't understand what it was like back then." She sounded small and broken now. The strong, polished woman who had walked onto the stage earlier had vanished. Tears started rolling down her cheeks as she stood there, hands clenched at her sides. The crowd reacted strongly. Some clapped, some gasped louder, and the noise level in the studio rose fast. The host looked completely lost, his mouth open but no words coming out. Trump saw the moment slipping away and tried to flip the script. He quickly pulled a folded document from inside his suit jacket and waved it high in the air. "Here, look at this. This is Barron's official birth certificate. It clearly lists Melania as the mother. Check the date. Check the signature. This proves everything she's saying is a lie." He shoved the paper toward the nearest camera, his hand shaking with anger. Jasmine didn't even blink. She leaned slightly forward and spoke directly into her microphone, her tone sharp and precise. "That birth certificate was signed 3 full months after Barron was actually born. The hospital records I showed you earlier proved the delivery happened in March 2016. This document was backdated and forged to cover up the truth. It's fake, Mr. Trump, and the dates don't lie." The second those words left her mouth, Ivanka collapsed back into her chair like all the strength had been sucked out of her body. She buried her face in both hands and started crying openly. Her shoulders shook hard. Soft sobs could be heard through her fingers. The entire studio seemed to hold its breath for a moment, then exploded into chaos. People were standing up in their seats. Loud talking and arguing broke out across the audience. Cameras flashed from every direction. Trump stood frozen for a second, staring at his daughter, then back at Jasmine, his face a deep shade of red. He slammed his fist on the desk again, making the microphone rattle loudly. "This is outrageous," he shouted, but his voice was starting to sound hoarse. "You're attacking my family. You'll pay for this." Jasmine sat perfectly still amid the storm, her hands folded on the table. She watched Ivanka crying and Trump raging, but her expression never changed. Then Jasmine reached into the folder one last time and pulled out a thick, official-looking document with a notary stamp clearly visible on the front. She held it up high so every camera could capture it. The studio lights reflected off the glossy paper as she spoke, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "This is the final piece," she said calmly. "It's a notarized statement from the obstetrician who delivered Barron. It confirms that Ivanka Trump gave birth by cesarean section in a private wing of a New York hospital in March 2016. And right here in black and white is Ivanka's own signature agreeing to keep the entire pregnancy and birth completely secret." She started reading the key lines out loud, slowly and clearly so no one would miss a word. "I, Ivanka Trump, hereby request full confidentiality regarding my pregnancy and delivery. No public record shall be released. All communications must go through my father's legal team." Jasmine paused, then looked straight at Ivanka. "This is your signature, isn't it?" The room was on edge. People were barely breathing. Ivanka stared at the document, her face drained of all color. Her hands trembled violently in her lap. For a long moment she said nothing. Then something inside her finally broke. She leaned forward toward the microphone, her voice shaky and barely above a whisper at first. I am Barron's real mother," she said, the words cracking as they came out. Tears streamed down her face. "We hid it because my father was running for president. We didn't want a scandal. We thought it would destroy everything, so we made up the story about Melania. It was supposed to stay a secret forever." The confession hit the studio like a thunderclap. Gasps echoed from every corner. Some audience members stood up in shock. Others covered their mouths, eyes wide. Trump immediately reached over and tried to cover Ivanka's mouth with his hand. "Stop talking," he hissed urgently. "Don't say another word." But Ivanka shoved his hand away hard. She looked straight into the cameras, her makeup running, her voice raw and trembling with emotion. "No, Dad. It's out now. Everyone knows. I carried him. I gave birth to him. I'm his mother. We lied to the whole country for years." That moment was pure explosion. Ivanka broke down completely, sobbing openly in front of millions. Her shoulders shook as she cried. Trump stood there stunned, his face a mixture of fury and disbelief. The polished father-daughter image they had walked in with was completely shattered. Trump spun toward Jasmine, his voice rising into a furious shout. "She was forced into this. You pressured her. This is all you're doing. She doesn't know what she's saying." Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She simply leaned forward and delivered the final blow, her words sharp and direct. "Mr. Trump, if you could hide something this big, the real identity of your own son's mother, right in the heart of your own family, then what else are you hiding from the American people?" The question landed like a hammer. For a few seconds, the studio went completely silent. Then it erupted. Half the audience jumped to their feet. Some were booing loudly, others were clapping and cheering. Shouts and arguments broke out across the seats. The noise was deafening, a chaotic mix of shock, anger, and disbelief all at once. Ivanka kept crying, her face buried in her hands again. Trump stood frozen, chest heaving, pointing at Jasmine, but unable to find any words that could fix what had just happened. The host finally tried to step in, raising both hands and speaking loudly into his microphone. "All right, everyone, let's take a breath here. This has gone far enough. Miss Crockett, we need to—" But Jasmine didn't stop. She leaned forward, her voice still calm but now carrying real weight. "This isn't private family business anymore. This is about a leader who used his own child as a political tool. Barron wasn't just a son, he became part of the image, part of the brand, and that lie has real consequences." She held up the stack of documents again. "Let's talk about what this actually means. These papers show serious legal issues. Inheritance rights are now in question because official records were falsified. Tax filings may have been affected by hiding the true parental relationship. Custody and guardianship documents could be challenged in court. When a public figure lies about something this fundamental, it doesn't just hurt the family. It weakens public trust and opens the door to future legal battles. The audience murmured louder. Some nodded, others looked stunned. The weight of her words settled over the studio like a heavy blanket. Trump had heard enough. His face burned bright red as he pushed his chair back and started to stand up. "I'm done with this circus," he growled. "I'm not sitting here listening to these lies anymore." He turned toward the side of the stage like he was about to walk off. But Ivanka suddenly reached out and grabbed his arm tightly. She pulled him back down into his seat. Her voice came out in a broken whisper, but because the microphones were still live, it echoed clearly through the entire studio and into millions of living rooms. "Stop, Dad, please, it's over, everyone already knows." Trump froze. He looked at his daughter, his mouth open, but no words came out. Ivanka's eyes were red and swollen from crying. She didn't let go of his arm. Her shoulders shook as fresh tears rolled down her face. She looked completely defeated. Jasmine turned slowly to face the main camera directly. Her expression was serious, her voice steady and clear as she spoke to the millions watching at home. "If a leader can hide something this big, the real mother of his own son, right in the middle of his family, then what else is he hiding from the American people? What other truths has he buried to protect his power, his image, or his agenda?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswered. The studio fell into a strange, tense silence for a few seconds. Then the reactions came in waves. Some people stood up and clapped. Others booed loudly. Arguments broke out between audience members. The noise grew chaotic again, but underneath it all was a deep sense of shock. The host tried one last time to speak, but his voice was drowned out. The cameras stayed rolling, capturing everything. Trump sitting there with his face flushed and fists clenched, breathing hard, saying nothing. Ivanka beside him, head down, crying quietly without making a sound anymore. And Jasmine, still seated, calm and composed, looking straight into the lens. Slowly, the studio lights began to dim. The bright golden glow faded into softer shadows. As the screen started to fade to black, Jasmine's final words echoed one last time, clear and powerful. "The answer belongs to you." The last image burned into the screen. Donald Trump, red-faced and silent, staring straight ahead with pure fury in his eyes. Ivanka next to him, broken and tear-streaked, no longer trying to hide her face. The audience sat in stunned silence, some still standing, many speechless. No one clapped, no one cheered, just a heavy, lingering quiet as the truth settled over everyone who had watched. Nothing would be the same after tonight.